Okay, welcome to the TCP Building Design Committee. It is 5:33 and we will call the meeting to order. A couple of opening remarks, excuse me. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. The town of Lunenburg, in response to COVID-19, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting is being conducted remotely. This meeting will be recorded and be able to be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. Christina? The following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the link below to join the public meeting, the link that was provided and posted in the agenda. From a telephone, dial the toll-free number 888-475-4499 and enter webinar ID 871-9634-6562 and then the pound sign. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Is there any public comment from the public? I don't see any members of the public other than our minutes clerk. And so is there any public comment from any of the committee members? And before I do that, I need to call the roll. I apologize. I always forget that. So Dave Passios.
Here.
Michael Ray Jeffries.
Here.
Brian Leighton.
Yeah.
Dave Blatt.
Here.
Christina, I'm going to butcher your last name. Also, I'll say Christina.
Here.
Okay. And I am here. Matthew Allison is not here. I'm not sure if he'll make it or not, but I think he's the only one unaccounted for. Any public comment from the committee or none?
Yeah, I think we'll cover it in our discussions later on. So
Okay. All right. So the agenda looks eerily similar to the previous ones, but I think it gives us a framework to discuss things. So John is with us, and I want to give him the floor here at the beginning of the meeting. What I am hopeful to do this evening relative to John is to I would like to, if the committee feels it appropriate, I would like to do a formal motion to approve the plan that he has given to us that I passed along to the committee a couple days ago, so that he can start his cost estimating phase. And then I would like to give him input on the parking layout and site layout as he suggested in his email. So those are the two main points. We certainly don't have to limit it to that, but that's what I'm hoping to work towards in this next segment here. So John, I will hand it over to you, and you can give us and I'm happy to, I can, do you want to share your screen, John?
Sure. Yeah, if
Okay.
you let me share it,
Yep.
I can bring up
Let
the
me,
drawing.
you should be able to do it.
Okay, let me try.
Try it.
Yep.
Okay.
How's that?
Looks good.
Okay, you can see it all? Good.
We can, it's a little,
Yeah, I'll zoom in on it.
zoom in here and there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Okay. So this is like from the last time, we've got it drawn into the computer now. Got things tightened up a little bit. As we discussed last time, there were quite a few comments, but I was asked to focus kind of on the low hanging fruit things because we're trying to get an apples to apples comparison between the previous renovation of the school and this new building. So a couple things that we did add inside here, there was a request for a couple more bathrooms because these bathrooms here were going to be kind of staff focused. So we added a couple more for the public side. So that if the public's down in the town area, there's a couple bathrooms here for the public. They don't necessarily have to walk all the way down to these larger rooms that kind of support the meeting spaces. So we didn't add any extra square footage for that. We put them in, we slid the stairs over. So this meeting room got modified a little bit, but it didn't affect the overall size of the building. So we did that on this level. And then we also did that up here on the second floor. We accommodated that. We turned the outdoor terrace that we had into additional storage to pick up some more storage area as suggested. Then I think that these were the only changes up here on the second floor. Back downstairs, the majority of changes happened in the extended daycare wing. So what we did, we moved the ACE up front so that that adult program now is when you first come in off the entrance, the adult clientele can come right into this space. We added the bathroom, we added the kitchen that was shown in the previous plan. So now that happens right up front, separated from the children's program. Then what we did is we moved up the two storage areas, the town storage and the school storage, to act as a buffer between this adult area and then the rear portion, which I may be uninformed here, but I assume the early learning and the community link are both for the kids.
Yep.
So those are both there. And then we have the 4 extended daycare rooms at the edge. 2 of the rooms had office spaces within them. So now we're showing now whether those are those 2 rooms or whether these office spaces need to be in these 2 rooms or whether eventually they all need an office space. I think the key is that we have all the 4 spaces here, all in one area. So it kind of goes adult, a buffer zone of storage, and then kind of the kids zone in the back. So we've kind of made those arrangements, those revisions to the plan. I started to go through and just kind of do a check. Right now, we're total building square footage, we're around 58,000 square feet on the 2 floors of the building.
How many? Can you say that one more time?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Can you say how many square feet one more time?
Oh, 58,000.
Okay.
Now I know some of these, I think we're pretty much spot on in the town. I think we're a little bit larger in some of these conference areas. So I can go back and trim some things up. Like in this block right here, I know the Lions Club is too big, but this room is too small. And these 2 storage areas are a little undersized. So that's just a manipulation of these areas. I'll make this Lions Club a little smaller. I'll take some space out for storage and give the meeting room so we're a little more in balance with the previous plan. But I think overall square footage, we're okay. I can just fine tune this a little bit here. This meeting room is a little bit smaller, but then the meeting rooms upstairs are a little bit larger. So I don't know how much you want me to go back and trim some of these things to match that original school building. Like I said, some of this is a matter of we're just stacking things now. So we have the square footage from the first floor to the upper floor. Like I said, I can go back and trim some things up. And then the same like in this wing, I think like a couple of like this community link room, I think it was on the previous, I think it was like 989. Now we're at 1030 just because of how we squared off the building. So, is it important to get that, say 40 square feet out? You can tell me and I can try to do that if you want. I can trim these things up a little bit to get it a little closer to apples. I mean, I think it's pretty close to apples, but that's a question, I guess, that we can discuss. So that's the updates on the building plan. So why don't we have the discussion on the plans first before we move to the site.
Okay, let me do this a little bit more systematically this time. I'll kind of go through each person individually, so we're not doing a more kind of round robin thing. So in no particular order here, I'm just going to start at the top. Dave Passios, do you have any items that you would like to, any questions, comments?
Yeah, just an initial question. I'm assuming some of the extra square footage is because of stairwells and an elevator space
Right.
that does not exist in a single story, three-wing building. So, that's just part of the operation of this building and the configuration, I should say, of this building. I understand the desire to shrink it down to, probably closer to 55,000 square feet to match the other building. But there are some reasons why there's a little bit more in this design. And I'm not sure how much we would gain, but maybe shrinking all of the education rooms down so that wing is shortened, and then see if there's anything else that's doable to, as we had a brief discussion about last meeting, about shortening the other wing also. I think in the final design with the building committee, if they're tasked to do more or less what's on the paper here, I think they're going to jump back up to 58,000 or 60,000 by the time they get done. One other looking down the road type of question. I had brought up the possibility, again, this would be a building committee thing down the road. If the steel infrastructure is in place for that single story wing and the roof sections to put on a second floor, then there would have to be, I would think, a space allotted somewhere in that wing for a second elevator also to maintain security between the education wing and the public wing. Does that make sense? And I would assume that would just get carved out of one of those rooms close to the lobby.
Do you want an answer from me or? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was, 80% statement, 20% question.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to have security for that, yeah, if the functions above it were also going to be school program, it may make sense to have, when you come in this entrance, to have a separate elevator. And yeah, I would suggest we carve it out of something here instead of adding some square footage in some, like maybe we take it out of the school storage area. You could easily get an elevator out of that space, or yeah, there's ways we could accommodate it.
Yeah.
Because like I said, each of these rooms might have they might be like 20 or 30 square. So, if you wanted to go back through and in the future and trim these back up, you could probably get enough space right there for just the elevator.
Right.
Depending how, but I know from what Tom Lamb told me before he left, he said everything was just a little too tight in the school building. He said almost every room could have used a little bit more square footage. So that's why I wasn't too upset when these came out a little bit larger.
Mm-hmm.
But again, yeah, I mean, we can, if 55,000 is the magic number, we can try to trim some of these things back down and get closer to it, if you'd like.
Okay, I think that's up to the feel of the committee.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Dave.
All right, thanks, Dave. Michael Ray.
Yeah, thank you. First, I think this is excellent, the plan that you've put together. So my comments are limited. So I agree with Mr. Passios about the 58,000. To me, it's not a big deal, especially understanding that the reason for it is largely due to stairwells and elevator space. That's probably contributing in large part. One thing that I like to see is a swap. So right now on the second floor, we have Veterans Affairs and the Land Use departments. And I'd like to see that swapped with the town manager suite. So it's really because there's a lot of private confidential conversations that happen And it's better if the town manager is not smack dab in the middle of the building. So putting that office suite, and also the land use is a frequently visited area. So if this could be seen as like a service corridor on the first floor where residents can come in and get all their different needs met, and then in the second floor being the superintendent office, and then where that bottom left corner for that to be the town manager suite instead. With similar to the superintendent having a corner office there, similarly, the town manager should be in the bottom left corner with the corner office as well. So swapping the town manager with that also this is just more of a name thing. So what's identified as conference room number 1 would make sense to be meeting room number 2. And what's identified as, and that's on the second floor. And on the first floor, the exact opposite. What's identified on the first floor as being meeting room number 2, that should be conference room number 1. So the idea was that there would be conference rooms available for staff to utilize during the day, and also as a secondary thing for members of the communities to utilize. So one thing that's missing is a conference room on the first floor. Also, given that the conference room is the size that it is, it just seems to make more sense to swap the names of conference room 1 and meeting room 2. And then the last comment is about staff toilets. So if we go to the education suite, if we go to the education suite, one of the things.
I'm sorry, do you mean the school offices in the?
No, the ACE program and all
Okay,
the
yeah.
after school stuff.
The purple.
Yeah, the purple. So one thing that I think would need to come in here is inside of one of the extended day rooms and inside of the early learning classroom, a small bathroom. And that would be a staff bathroom that typically, although there are boys and girls bathrooms in that part of the building, typically, there's no mingling of adults going into bathrooms with children. And so in early ed, that way the staff can run to a bathroom and you don't lose your ratios. And then also just in general for there to be that, like I said, that staff bathroom in that wing.
So in one of the extended daycare and in the early, so would those be accessible from the hallway?
No, accessible from inside the room.
Inside the room, okay.
So Michael, if I may, most of your suggestions really haven't changed the square footage. It's just
Correct.
shuffling adjacencies around a little bit.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
Otherwise, I really do think that the job you did here is quite phenomenal. It really is. I know that last meeting, it felt like we're all over the place. So I want to give you some strong kudos for being able to take all that info and put it together in a format here that makes a lot of sense. So thank you very much for that.
No, thank you.
Okay, Brian, you are next.
Thank you. I also really like the design. I didn't have any concerns.
Okay. Dave Blatt.
Okay, just I understand the difference between the 58 and the 55. It just, we had a long discussion last night and there was a big idea of apples and apples. So I don't know if, anybody's going to get wrapped up on that 3,000 extra square feet. I think you did a great job with laying things out and putting things where they need to be. I guess the only thing I have if I had anything would be the building support room at 1,000 square feet. I know it's there because that's a good location. However, do we need it? Did you foresee, and this is more from your experience, do you foresee needing that much room in a building support room? Or could it possibly be where storage is on the first floor and meeting room 1 is on the second floor? I think it's meeting room 1. Hold on. First floor, second floor. Come on. Yeah, so it's storage on the second and meeting room 2 on the first.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say at this point in time because I don't know the mechanical systems that are going in yet. So I don't know how much room, if if some of it can get on the roof, if more of it needs to, some of the newer systems work better if you can keep them in the building. They last longer, there's less weather, less weather on them if you can keep them in the building. So sometimes we try to get space within the building for them, and if not, then we put them on the roof.
Yeah.
So yeah, there might be some extra space in there, but I think those are some things that we could, shuffle down the road as well.
Perfect. No, that's fine.
If this goes ahead and
yeah.
we find out we don't need that space, yeah, then we could easily make a flip, and move some things around.
Okay, and
Yeah.
that's fine. And the only other thing was, as I agreed with Mr. Jeffries, that moving the town manager suite upstairs and putting the other stuff downstairs was a much better just arrangement, to say. Other than that, I think you did a great job on the plans.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Christina?
Hi, so all I was going to say was similar to Mr. Jeffries with the bathroom in the extended day area, just for the ratios and that the staff didn't have to share the bathrooms with the kids. But otherwise, I think it's great. I think, we're stressing over 3,000 square feet, but if we do decide to go with a new building, I'm sure they'll find a way to fill it real quick. So I don't know if it's worth pinching it down right now when we know it's going to get added back. So I would just say to leave it as it is.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much everything that was said. I definitely agree with the sentiment that we, look to flip the town manager suite. But generally speaking, I really concur with the statements that I think this is a really thoughtful plan. I really, even the first sketch you gave us 2 weeks ago, I thought was really good. And I think it really handles adjacencies well. I think it gives us flexibility in the future in a way that we didn't have. I think, there's spaces that I think could be converted to other things in the future. The ability to put a second floor on the first floor wing is huge. So I kind of concur with all that. So I really don't have any other comments to add on this portion of it. So,
Greg, could I have one more real quick exchange?
yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if John, I'm sure we can look it up in the archives of the first go around with this for the renovation. But do you know if the multi-purpose area, storage, and I can't quite read what's up the other end of that, but that space is equal to or larger than the gymnasium and stage area in the present building?
Give me 1 second here. I got the plans right here, 3.7. It looks like we're within 100 square feet of the multi-purpose room. And the storage room, we're actually 100 square feet larger, so we're pretty much spot on.
Between the gymnasium and the
Storage, yeah.
stage area and so on.
Yeah, the
Okay.
multi-purpose room before the gymnasium was like 3,700 and looks like we're like 36.
Yep.
So, and then the storage was 650 and here we're like 723. So I think overall we're pretty close. Maybe the storage wall moves a little bit when, it gets fine tuned in the future. And plus, if this is new anyways, what I would suggest, because I know that was just, sorry to turn my head for a second. I know we're just matching up to what was in the school before, but if you're building it new, we may want to take a look at, a gymnasium size and really lay it out with basketball hoops and sidelines and, this, so the shape of this space may change if this building goes ahead. I'd want to say, let's look at the layout within this room and make sure these dimensions are right, because they may end up changing. Because I've done a couple basketball courts before, and there's certain clearances you want to maintain around the boundaries. Would you have some stands or some seating in here? Different things like that may change the proportions of the space. Right now, we just kind of copied what was in the school, but does that make sense for a new building? I don't know. We'd have to, I think that's one of the things you'd want to examine if this building goes ahead.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks. Yeah, one thing I want to add too, there was a facilities garage work area. I didn't know if that was going to be in this design as well. I know we weren't renovating it, but did we need that space in here for the new build?
I thought last time we said we weren't putting it in because it wasn't part of the program originally. It happened to be there, but it wasn't something that was good. Is that correct, Greg?
That's my recollection, that when we went through the process with, a year ago, that we didn't demolish the existing garage building as part of the build because it was there, and the facilities department, would just assume keep using it as is. But we didn't, so it wasn't really programmed into the new building, so to speak. It was just sort of leftover space that we had. And I think we gave John that feedback that, if we're demolishing the building, we're certainly not gonna leave that portion of the old building standing. And it was really just left last time because it was existing already. So that's my recollection.
Thank you.
Yeah, Greg, it would be like having a boatyard with overgrown brush and
Yeah.
old equipment in front of a building that's brand new.
Right.
I think you know what I'm alluding to.
Yeah, I do.
Excuse me.
By the way, do we get to call it a rehab because we left one wall standing?
Michael Ray, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Roy. As we're looking at meeting room number one, I have just a couple of observations. So this is going to be the primary meeting space for the town, and just so I can get some clarity, in this area on the east side with this door opening in meeting number one, not that one, the other one on the other side, what does that go to? The kitchen?
Kitchen, correct. In the original plan, it looked, the kitchen opened up to the meeting room in the previous plan. So in this new plan, I situated the kitchen so that it could open up to both the meeting room and the multi-purpose in case you happen to have a larger function in the gym at some point in time, I don't know, a Christmas party or some holiday party where you may want to have access to food. So I put it between both and then showing doors that you could access the kitchen from both sides.
So it looks like you forgot doors to the hallway on the meeting
Oh,
room.
yeah, I didn't. Yeah, there's some, I'm sure there's things missing on this plan.
Yeah, so my comments then exactly that what Mr. Blatt said is that having a hallway access to the kitchen area, hallway access to the meeting room. I'm not a big fan of, I understand that when we were looking at the other design, we were looking at a cafeteria and how we can create a cafeteria to kind of function as a cafeteria and also as a primary meeting space. I think that with this type of design, the multi-purpose room is probably going to function as a cafeteria if there were to be those community meeting meals and not meeting room number one. I would not be in one of these side walls is going to be the primary area where the board's meeting at. So I would not be in favor of there being a door directly behind them. I'm not sure if there's, I don't even know if there even needs to be access into the kitchen from that meeting space.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think we have the luxury here of positioning the kitchen adjacent to the gym. And I think that the gym is probably larger than the other cafeteria in the existing school. And so I think that we're getting a better result just because we can position the kitchen next to the multipurpose room in that, which is bigger than the cafeteria space in the existing school. So I don't think we need the ability to do both. I would agree with that statement, actually, that
Okay.
that's probably going to be the wall that we have the table at with the chairs, and then people are going to be facing the kitchen, that kitchen wall, I would imagine. So you'd have the back of the room would be on the storage side, I would think. And I just don't see, I think Michael Ray is spot on. I think that's our primary meeting room, and I can't imagine breaking that down very often to use it for food related uses. So
Okay, I'll take the door out,
man,
add the corridor doors and.
yeah, it's small potatoes
Sounds
here,
good.
but
Oh, yeah.
John, also, I'm assuming it's in the notes, but just to verify it, the kitchen in the original estimate was infrastructure only, not equipped.
Okay,
yeah, we were gonna do the plumbing for it, but we weren't gonna stuff it with the equipment because we know that's a costly thing.
If I may just add to that, the only exception is likely going to need to be the range hood. Typically range, as you know, Mr. Roy, there's a whole bunch of makeup air calculations. There's a lot of mechanicals that go into those range hoods. And so it's better on this end to plan and design for a range hood than to try to do this after the fact, especially since it will likely require supplemental air handlers and everything else. So I would say, even though it's not equipped, it should have a range hood.
Yeah, that's fine. I defer to the experts on that for sure. Yep.
yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I left this roof space above it, because you probably, like you just said, that, there might be because you have a range hood, there's probably some special exhaust and some things that need to get situated just above the kitchen. So that's why I was leaving this roof space above it. And there shouldn't be a door there, but yeah, for just we can space to locate equipment. And then, depending what type of equipment in the kitchen, you're probably going to end up with a grease trap somewhere that we'd need to locate. And, those are all things down, obviously, in the future design, but right, we need some of those things will happen in the future.
I think that door actually is probably appropriate, so that way there's roof access from the second floor.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah,
thinking that.
you're right. That's probably not a bad idea. And so that way you don't have to go to it from the outside. We could access it in case it's some repairs needed. Very true.
Good eye, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was thinking that same thing actually, but okay, anybody else? I don't want to fast forward this, but I feel like we're getting somewhere here. So it seems to me that, again, we have a few small little tweaks like flipping the town manager suite with Veterans Affairs, VA, and then adding some bathrooms, tweaking the doors configurations here and there, but
Yep, some label changes on meeting rooms and
Labeling, yeah.
conference rooms. Yep.
but I think so if anybody feels like they are at a point that they could formulate some sort of motion, I would like to give John, if we feel like we're positioned to do it, to give him perhaps a conditional approval conditional on those items, if anybody's feels that is appropriate.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the design layout as presented with the discussed modifications.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, I will take a roll call vote. Dave Passios,
Aye.
Michael Ray Jeffries,
Aye.
Dave Blatt,
Aye.
Brian Layden,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
and an aye for me. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, in the spirit of moving this along with John, let's hop right into the exterior.
Right, so the last time we looked at this sketch where I overlaid the new building onto the footprint of the previous building, just to start the conversation, and we talked about things, keeping the same amount of parking that was shown on the previous site plan, taking that kind of unfinished lot that's, I think, is up in this corner, paving it, creating a loop road around, looking at parking for staff that they could come in through this stairway into the town offices. There was discussion about limiting parking in front, maybe getting it down this side road here. So what I end up doing is pulling the site plan from the previous submission, which you can see here on the screen. I believe this is somewhere around like 153, 155 spaces, something like that. So I just kind of wanted to run through it. So this lot up here is where that I think the unfinished lot is now. And that's showing it being finished with parking, a loop road with some spaces coming down here. So these two lots is where I would like to see when I speak to the civil guy. We could probably keep some parking along here, but I'd like to see if we could get a little more parking closer to this entrance so that staff have a place to park and they could come in through this door here. So modifying, because this wing isn't here any now, so kind of combining these probably, if we can, into some kind of a parking lot that's maybe up here and bends that way a little bit. So we get a grouping of parking staff wise here. Now, looking at the remainder of this, it looks like there's some parking already shown on this road that we can replicate. There is some parking shown at the front of the building, and I know we'll need some handicap spaces there. But I guess I wanted to have a discussion about, because it looks like there's 15 spaces here in the front. I'm not sure if there's room to move all of those out and still maintain the same total. And then there's the discussion over the outdoor child play area. What I was thinking of, I'm sorry to be bouncing back and forth, but we have the 4 extended daycare rooms up in this corner. So I was thinking 2 of those rooms could egress directly out if we had a play area right in the back, and the other ones could come out the door and then come over into that play area. So I would think back behind this building would be a great spot for the children's play area. And if we have this loop road kind of coming by, it kind of creates a protected area back there. So I think that would be a good spot that I can give direction to the civil guy, our civil engineer, to kind of look at that. So those are my thoughts as far as like this space could stay. These areas I'd want to reconfigure closer, like maybe get a double stack parking here that also kind of angles off, so we get a good grouping here for staff. Children's play area here, that surface lot gets redone. Now whether we make that a little bit larger and maybe some of these spaces come back here. I guess the discussion more is around the comment that was made about not having too much parking in front of the entrance, because it looks like we have 15 spaces now, and I think we will need some public space, because if this is going to be staff here, we can't have all the public spaces here, I don't think, and force them to walk over to there. So I guess I want to revisit that conversation. If that wasn't too, hopefully that wasn't too confusing.
No, I think it's good. So I'd like to start on this one if I can, folks. I had an hour today and I doodled.
Oh, fantastic.
can I share my screen?
Yeah, I'll stop the share here.
Thank you.
Oh, Doug.
And this is,
I love when people doodle.
this is an hour and,
Multi-million
No,
dollar doodle.
it's
Well,
a
I
great
guess
way
we'll
to.
be the judge of whether that was good or bad for that.
I'm
hour.
not looking, I'm not looking for extra
It's,
credit
to
on
me,
this.
it's never bad. Any kind of a sketch, thought, doodle is always a good thing to me. Oh, look at this.
Can you hear,
this is-
can you see? Okay.
This is more than a doodle.
Yeah,
Wow,
all right, it's a doodle, but,
this is
so
fantastic.
I was literally just brainstorming. So I took I took the old rendered plan and I dropped the new building on there. It's scaled, so it's probably not
Mhm.
perfect, but. And I just did some rough, my thought here was, there's enough room between this wing to add a double bay, this existing parking,
Mhm.
and add another bay here. And still have room for green space between the building.
Mhm.
And then, I think there's a lot of room up and back here to just put a big old parking lot that would not only function as parking for this building, but also would function as overflow parking for the school facility, which is right across the street.
Right.
So and then I just quickly throw a connection through here that I thought could be gravel. You could pave any of this and put parking next to it if we decide we want to do it, and we could reconfigure it, but it's just a quick thing showing that we need to have a loop around the building, but not necessarily a loop for everybody. It could just be an emergency access type loop, to save costs, in my opinion. So the red spaces here net us 77 spaces. And the parking spaces that we have, not including the ones in the infield here, we had 68 new spaces shown in the areas in gray back in here. So if we were to just remove all the things we have in gray and do the red, we'd go from 68 spaces to 77 spaces in that area. And then it's a question of whether we wanted to minimize the amount of spaces that we build here. If we wanted to do that, you could actually just take this edge of this parking right here. Every 10 feet, you move it out, you pick up 4 more spaces. So if you moved it 40 more feet, you'd get 16 more spaces, and you'd be up. You could totally almost completely remove these spaces and have the same number as we had before. So, there's some efficiencies here, I think. I'm not saying this is a final, again, it was an hour of doodling, but this is what I had in mind. It's not representative of the committee, but it's just something I thought a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Absolutely.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, my concern looking at this initially, my thought process is that this shifts 80% of the parking to the education end of the building and education entrance of the building.
Yeah.
And almost wipes out the public parking where, I don't know, I think we need to analyze in our heads, where's going to be the biggest volume? Which entrance is going to be used the most, or is it going to be equal with the public and the employees coming into the town office areas? We can't afford to shortchange that end of the building where everybody's going to be parking in the back and want to go through the school wing, which they're not going to be able to do. And then they're going to have to walk the full 2/3 of the length of the building in the L to get into the town office space. That's my only concern.
I agree. I envision we need parking over here. Definitely. And it either needs to be as we show it here, or we need to put something over here. I mean, we're going to have to do that because you have to service this side of the building, but Christina, go ahead.
Hi, so I was gonna just agree with Mr. Passio saying that there needs to be parking on the other side. Maybe if we pushed out that gravel road. I still don't know how I feel about parking in the front of the building. So when you're looking at it, that front part of the island, I don't necessarily think that there should be parking there, but on the back side or on the side closest to the library, I
So-
liked it there. Yeah. I don't know if it'd be something possible where we could maybe put maybe just handicap on that front side. So it's very minimal parking, because as Mr. Jeffries said before, this is going to be a building that we hopefully have for a while. So we want it to be aesthetically pleasing. We don't necessarily want to junk it up when we have to, like, when someone wants to use it to take pictures, that there's going to be a ton of cars in front of it. So I don't know if there's a way to make sure it's handicap accessible without overloading the area.
Yep.
Keep in mind
Um,
also that, you know, in the original design on the renovation, we created a parking area right up against the building on that entire west wing. I get the concern about the ability to be photographic, if you want to call it that, for the front side of the building. But a functional office building has parking right up at the building and as close to the main entrance as possible. You know, you got to look at it from that perspective also. Aesthetically pleasing, probably not as great as moving parking away from it, but you still got to think about people having to, what distance they're going to have to walk just to get to a door, to get out of the weather, to get into where they're going.
Okay, Michael Ray.
Yeah, so I'm not in favor of any parking directly in front of the building, yep, in that area at all. And I think it is about the appearance of the building. It's also, this area has been used this year for band concerts, and I think that we maintain that capability in the future. Yep, we maintain that capability in the future if we leave it around the same size. And so not having that other parking on the north side, I think, just makes the whole thing work better. When we look at the, I agree with leaving those handicap spaces in front of the building. As we look at this back section though, in this area of the L, where Christina recommended putting the playground, I would actually recommend putting the majority of the parking there. I think that's prime location for a parking lot. It's a little more hidden. It's close to the staff entrance, so you have enough staff that can park there. I think that would work well. And then as we look at the child area, I would leave that kind of as close to the school side of the property as possible, and away from the parking area. So yeah, right where your cursor is, exactly. I would put that kind of to the right, maybe a little more. Yep, northeast corner. I think that would probably be the best location for the kid area. It would be somewhat hidden as you look at the building directly on. It's also away from the public, you know, using parking areas. And then I would keep kind of a small lot where you have it shown, Greg, on the bottom right. I think it's the existing, actually, that's already there. Further down, yep. I would keep that kind of small area there. And that provides, I think, additional parking when there are building needs for staff to come, be able to park there. If you have someone that's working in the kitchen area or getting any kind of food deliveries that you need to have that. So I think, Greg, what you did was actually really great. I would just shuffle it around a little bit.
Well, yeah, I had one, I didn't iterate this at all. I just drew lines, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that clear, John? Were there any questions on that?
Well, I'm just, if you put the parking back, yeah, we're back there. Does that mean we now have to create an entrance in the back, because your entrance is out front here? And I'm still concerned about public getting into the building, you know, parking. I mean, can we put parking to the left of this gravel road down where these trees are?
Yeah, and again, don't take this as gospel. This is
No,
just-
no, but I'm just asking what, you know,
Yeah.
because I do think there needs to be some parking available at the, you know, people that are coming in to pay a bill or something.
Yeah,
You don't
absolutely.
want them to have to park, you know, in the back and then have to walk all the way around to get to the front door.
I think the way my thoughts after hearing the discussion are this. Well, first of all, I think it would probably make sense to move the building maybe 15 feet back. Because I don't think it makes any sense to reconfigure the road that we have here. It's a perfectly good road. It might need resurfacing, but it doesn't make any sense to do that. I think to have more, we're crowding the plate here a little bit, I think, in the front. So I think to have
Mhm.
more, a plaza here would be good.
Mhm.
And if, I think we have the room, I think we could shift everything back 15, 20 feet. We could move parking back 15, 20 feet, and that would give us some more breathing room here. I position this road in this area, remembering that not niche, Meridian, use Meridian or niche?
Yes, Meridian.
Meridian, which is a civil engineer, was really interested in aligning this road with this intersection here.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. You could move this over. You could put double barrel parking on both sides. You could put, probably 20 spaces right here. And that is not that far of a walk by sidewalk from here over to the front entrance of the building.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah,
You
if we
could have a
put it there.
handicap, you could have
Yep.
you could have 2 handicap spaces or 3 or whatever we need by code right here.
Mhm.
Closest to the building, you'd have your accessible route. And that might mitigate concerns with parking in the middle. I
Mhm.
think that
I like that idea.
when we're gonna have to build this area anyway. So from a cost standpoint, I'm guessing here, but these are probably going to cost more money per square foot than these because we're already going to be constructing in this area in this area anyways.
Yes.
This year we have to rip up curbing, we have to prep it, we gotta, you know what I'm saying, when it's already natural green space.
Right. And if it is green space, I think it'd be nice to leave it that way.
Yeah, and so I kind of agree with that comment that Michael Ray said. I'd
Yeah.
like to see it at least off to the side, and I think it seems like we could accommodate that. I mean, it works. Well, I shouldn't say that.
And pushing
People
this
park-
back, I think, is a great idea because that gives us a chance to create more of a public
Yeah,
arrival space, little terrace out front. So people
Yeah.
were talking before about photographs out. That would just make a much nicer entrance into your town hall.
yeah. And here I was thinking the kind of the way I configured this was this could also be a plaza area right here.
Yep.
So, you come and there's a drop off. There's an ability to drop off here, right adjacent to a concrete plaza area where you can have a nice gathering space or a vestibule maybe someday or whatever. But that's enough for me. Dave, go ahead. Dave Blatt.
Okay, so looking at this thing, I like your plans. The only problem we have is that now that I look at it, is the staff wing, there's no good place for parking because there's no entrance on the left corner right now. They would still have to, even if you have parking there, they still have to walk all the way to the front entrance.
Well, they could
So-
come in through the doorway. They could come in through the stairwell.
Yeah, we could have.
But that's, you're saying a doorway there. So actually, looking at this, I like the parking plan. However, is there a way of flipping the 2 stories? In other words, taking the whole staff side, moving it to where the school side is, taking the school side, moving it to where the staff side is. So this way, the main entrance to the whole building and everything would be where all this parking is on the front, on the right-hand side, as well as the back. And then you have the whole back behind the building to be a play area, a courtyard, or everything. Because if you're looking at it as the school side doesn't need parking, it just needs more of a drop-off area and maybe a short-term parking just to pick up a kid or go in for something. But it's really the town side and the office side and then the multi-purpose side that needs all the parking. So I hate to say this, I love the plans. However, is there a way of kind of flipping the 2 sides? And that way you would have, the parking right in front. If not, rotate the building 90, clockwise 90 degrees. I'm sorry, counterclockwise 90 degrees.
Yeah, so you're saying that so then the town hall entrance is on the east side of the building
Yeah,
For all the
well, I'll call
parking.
it, listen, for those folks who don't know directions, I'll call it the right side of the building.
Yeah.
So, right? But that would be,
The other east, yeah.
yeah. But this way you can make, this way, because the only thing is I do agree with the comments about not wanting to have a lot of parking in the front. However, you need some kind of handicap in the front, in my opinion, that you need some handicap in the front for town offices. But you don't need the handicap for the school side. Really.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you will.
I mean, but I can do that the same way I have it. I have a couple of spaces that are parallel parking on that road.
That's
And those are
debatable.
my handicap for the school side.
I don't think those handicap spaces would not meet current ADA standards. I don't believe. Because you have to have a landing barrier-free zone.
Well, okay, so I'm still knocking that down to what, 5 spaces for the school side at most?
Yeah, I understand your
Space.
point. I'm splitting hairs, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, and as you said, this way, all of the part, and by the way, we have all that room on the left side of the building to actually push the building back further if you wanted to accommodate, type of thing. It just was a thought, maybe whether it's turned 90 degrees counterclockwise or whether it's the 2 sides are switched. I like all the parking, how you have it, because that parking will now also service the soccer fields that everybody parks in the road for soccer and everything like that. So now you're making sure people are off that road at all times.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
So
One
if
of
I can
the
make a
things
comment.
one of the things you're gonna run into if you flip that building is that you've now taken the kids and put them up towards what's the front of the building now and put them as far as possible away from the schools they're coming from and passing through the area of town offices. And that is one of the biggest political things in this whole project that will flare up again.
So I can still have that entrance there, and the kids at this point, the kids have to be bused from there anyhow. There's no kids walking to this building from the high school, middle school. They're being bused from the primary and the elementary school. So
I'm not in agreement with most of your recommendations on this one, Mr. Blatt. I think the building has to face Mass Ave, no matter what. And since we already approved the plan, I think we should stay with what we have.
okay, like I say, my fear here is that where does the staff park? And I really don't want to see a huge parking lot on the left. That's not a nice green space. And that's a nice green space. And, there was enough controversy of what that would be used for, whatever. I mean, I'm fine with either way. It's just.
What are your thoughts on my recommendation behind the building in that L space area?
I do agree with that. However, that's the same thing. How do they get in? And if there's a doorway in the stairwell,
yeah,
which I didn't notice in the plans, but maybe I just didn't see it in the plans. But so there's no doorway in the stairwell on the left right now. But if there's a doorway in the stairwell, they can get into that side. If not, if you have staff parking behind the building, they have to walk all the way around to the front to get in the winter. Now, granted, town hall, I don't know where they park now, the town hall, because there's no parking.
They don't either. Yeah, they don't know where they park either. Yeah.
no.
Right.
They park at the teen center.
Right, exactly. They have to walk from there. So maybe I'm just splitting hairs because the fact is they could all park in that section on the right and walk in over there. And by the way, the other side of that is in the building. I know we agreed on the building, but if you move the doors between where the ace is, between by the stairway back further to the other side of the opening, you're still cutting off the school from the town, but now people can come into that section and walk into the town side without doors. I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah.
My concern here is that where does the staff park? And I don't, necessarily like that because now you have staff, right,
You could get probably 30 more spaces just by doing this.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. That's more than, that's
The
pretty much
door-
enough for the staff.
And then you could have a walkable path into the back door for staff.
Yep.
And you could still have area to put a
Sure.
a play area here, and you could remove these and you'd end up with like a net of 10 more spaces with no additional parking in the infield. You'd end up with like roughly 10 more spaces than we had drawn in the previous plan.
Okay, so so that gets me to the point though, your handicap parking and handicap entrance is really on the left.
Well,
I mean, sorry, on the right,
yeah, but you could also shift this even further and put a bay of parking in there, some of which would be handicapped. And then you could, the accessible route is that way.
I understand, but then I like I said, I look at it as, if you look on the right-hand side, you have those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces that are like right there.
Oh, here, yeah.
If that was handicapped and that's where you're going in, if you went back to the plans, which I don't know if you have the plans handy, it would just have it, you would have to move one set of doors, and then that could be an entrance into, the handicapped entrance into the facility.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you're gonna need, this is gonna be an accessible route, and this is gonna have to have an accessible route.
For
Yeah.
handicap.
You're gonna have to,
They
you're
they
gonna have
both
to
have
have,
to be, yeah.
you're gonna have to have handicap spaces with an accessible route into both doors.
Correct.
Well,
So-
do I have to have spaces near both doors?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Then my point is, just, I just was more for staff parking. That was it.
No, I understand that. And again, this was just I said, geez, I was thinking, I had something, a picture in my head and I drew it, so.
And by the way, my fear
Please
is
don't.
that I agree with the comments with the spaces in the front,
Yeah.
because right now, those 15 well, 10 out of those 15 that aren't handicapped will be taken up by staff. I can guarantee it. The
Oh, yeah.
staff will park there. Because it's the shortest entrance to get in.
Oh, yeah. Unless they're told not to, but yeah.
Well, I can say the staff will park.
Well, you can do like at our town hall that the spaces are like, I think they have like an hour time limit on it. So staff can't park there all day because then they'll get ticketed. So it's set up so that if people are just coming in to pay bills or have a quick meeting, the public can park and staff have to park in the rear and walk around.
Okay, no, I say, I like the green space as much as we can keep green space in the rear, even if you have the playground, but you're also having a green space for staff or whatever to relax, that works out well,
All right, Christina has her hand.
Keep in mind too, in the final design of the building, doorways can be moved and added to access those areas.
Yeah.
This
And
isn't set in stone. We're just trying to get
the whole thing can change, guys.
right.
We can mirror the building. We can mirror the building later if we feel that. We're just trying to get something that, makes sense. All these are valid concerns, but we're not going to be locked into this design, I guess is what I'm saying.
So, I'm sorry, Christina, one last thing though. Mr. Chair, if that's the case, why don't we just leave your parking as is, eliminate the spaces in the front and call it a day?
Yeah, I think you'd have to eliminate the spaces in the front, we'll have to add some more because,
Yeah,
Okay.
you will need some
said-
spaces along here for the public.
so, but this was just a starting point, I would imagine,
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I'm-
could easily add some along the edge here to just, provide for some public and some staff and the majority in the back and the rear. I think we can
I'm
make
just
this.
trying to make
clean
this
up.
so as quickly, as simple as possible, just because all we're trying to do is get an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah.
that's my point. I mean, I definitely think there needs to be, if we're not gonna do parking in the infield, we definitely need parking on the side and or back here, for sure.
Yep.
Because, well, we would need like, we'd need these 25 more space. We need to make up these 25 spaces because I didn't accommodate them in my sketch. So, we'd have to do that. Again, it's just a quick thing. So, Christina, go ahead. Sorry for the wait.
No, I was just gonna say, it's kind of negative, I guess, but I was gonna say, I don't know if we need to put this much discussion into parking if we can, if it's probably going to change once the building gets approved, if we could just find a way to, without changing everything over, to just add a few parking spots for the staff and call it a day. But it seems like they got to that point already.
Greg, I'd like to see us adopt your layout with the added spaces off the corner of the town
Down here.
wing
Down in
to
here.
make up the ones we lose in the front. Leave in the front island though, leave the spaces, as Christina mentioned,
Down here.
closest to the library. Take out the ones in front of the main entrance. Add those in beyond the corner. And then have them design it that way. I mean, that's the closest to apples that makes sense for the shape of the building that's going to be designed. And then let the building committee fine tune it later.
I mean, okay. Brian has his hand up. Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks. Yeah, I would agree. I think apples to apples is always a good way to go. But I do love the idea of, again, leaving green space, making sure that the employee parking is a decent, small enough location away from an employee entrance or any entrance, and keeping it away from the children area. And then just minimizing the parking out front.
Okay. All right.
So I'd make it as a motion actually to adopt what Greg has here on the screen in red, with removing the spaces on the front island closest to the building and adding those spaces in somewhere on that access road as it swings around the back end of the wing. Again, it's going to get moved around as long as we get our handicap spaces accounted for properly for the entrances. You know, that's the best we can do with an adjusted parking layout right now.
Would that include shifting the building back too?
Yeah, I think so, John. That would work, right?
Yeah, we could.
I like that shift back. I really do, because it pushes it back towards the existing parking lot anyway. And
I just have a question. So that means the child area will have to go to the left of, yeah, right in there
yeah,
somewhere.
right in there.
For
Yep.
this go round, it could move later on, but
Yep.
okay.
Okay.
That was a motion. I don't know if we got a
You made
second.
motion, so if there's a second, we'll discuss it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the motion. I understand that we're gonna have more time to talk about this, assuming that there's more funding to talk about this. What my concern is I don't think, I mean, apples to apples is not necessarily the exact same parking layout. I look at it as just, so long as we have roughly the same amount of parking spaces, I think we've achieved the apples to apples. What concerns me is that although we can have these discussions, that ultimately there's going to be a presentation at town meeting. And it's something that people will get stuck on, in my opinion, of looking at a map that shows a child area surrounded by parking lots. While we understand that may change, I think it's the question of, well, why not just change it? And why not just not present that to begin with? So I can't support the child area being surrounded by parking lots. And I can't support this large parking area in the direct area of the child area. I mean, one thing we also have to think about is, I mean, these, you know, it feeds into the argument about what happens if there's a predator that parks in this area and now we have a safety issue. And I think we just open ourselves up to unnecessary avenues for disagreements. But if we postpone this discussion and just say what's expedient. So again, I go back to not being in favor of this parking area being anywhere near this northern wing, or it's not anywhere near it, moving it behind the building and creating a kid space there. So I'm gonna be a no for the motion.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Dave here.
Yep, go ahead.
So if I look at that, I appreciate Mr. Jeffrey's comments and, thinking maybe that's thing. Is there a way of taking that lot that you've made on the upper side and just putting it on the right side?
Over here?
Yeah,
You
it
could.
solves the issue of staff parking. It solves the issue of getting things away from the kids. And it solves it just makes it
Well,
easier.
The other thing you could do here, good, sorry to interrupt.
No, that was just as simple as that. I agree that, everything is bunched around the kids right now. And that was one of my reasons for saying, do I flip the two? And I understand that we already approved things, but that it's a matter of what makes sense, what makes sense at some point.
So if I could just offer a suggestion,
Sure.
perhaps a way forward. Sorry, Christina, I see your hand. There's tons of room up here. If we shift the building 15 feet, you're talking about shifting it from this black line to this red line, so not far. Okay.
Yeah.
The distance between this red line and the center of this parking is like 65 feet. So we could take this whole parking bay. Whoops, sorry. We could take this whole parking bay and move it like that and still have and sort of achieve the same thing. Still,
Yeah.
you create a
Okay.
you create a green space in here. And you could, this area, my argument is this area is going to be used for parking because it's used for parking now. And unless we take it out and put grass there, which I just can't imagine the schools being in favor of, because this is used for school parking now today. So there's gonna be a big parking area here, in my view, unless we literally like make it into a field. So, we could just move this away from the building, get a little bit more green space here. It doesn't help the fact that now the parking spaces are further removed from the building, which were the comments that we had before. But if we did that and we had more spaces on this side of the building, that would give us more flexibility for where we put a play area. You got to also remember that we don't have a play area programmed into the TCP renovation project. I think the assumption is they're just going to keep using Kids Kingdom like they do now.
Yes.
So that's a nice yes to have, but it's also not something that we really talk much, if at all, during the TCP renovation thing. So I agree that we need it and that we put it in here, and this building accommodates it, way better than the other one. But it's not something we discuss much, if at all, in the other projects. So that's my 2 cents.
I would agree with that modification, Mr. Roy.
Okay. And again, it's in the spirit of trying to accommodate everybody and getting to the point where we can get John some solid guidance here, so he can get his civil engineers off the blocks, because I can tell you that they're not sitting around waiting for John to call them. They have a pretty significant backlog, I'm sure. So, Christina, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, because I have 2 very young kids, they do use I think it's not early intervention, it's the program for kids who aren't in preschool where it's the state funded grant. And right now they play in that green space between the 3 buildings. So that's
Okay.
why I mentioned keeping it there.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't see I understand Mr. Jeffrey's point about the cars and being surrounded by parking, but if it's just that parking in the red, which you're on right now, and the staff parking to the left of the left building, if that parking behind it's gone, would it still be, the kids are kind of secluded behind the school where they are, so they don't have the chance of running into the road to the other schools or bolting to the library. It kind of corrals them in a way.
You mean, so you're in favor of having the play area back in this area?
Yeah, because I think if you put it to where that parking lot was, you get
Over here.
people way further away, but they still have the chance of the kids running into the road or running into the street. So I don't necessarily like the idea of the green area there. where
That's
they're
a good-
more exposed.
Yeah, I
So I
think I tend to agree with that. Yeah.
So if there was a way to extend the parking like you did, because that looks great, remove the parking behind the fire road and just keep the staff parking on the left, almost limited, maybe a few short-term parking spaces, then that highly limits the parking and their exposure.
I agree with everything Christina just said.
If
Okay.
I could ask John, maybe, ultimately, whatever layout you do for parking, is there anything that we've talked about here that is outrageously more expensive or cheaper than the original layout? I mean, it's semantics as to how you lay it out. I think the dollar amount's going to be about the same either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. Where Greg's showing, expanding the parking on the east or right side of the building, I think that makes a lot of sense because you already have parking here. So to expand that paved area, and you're going to take that gravelled area and resurface that anyway. So to move that back makes some sense. All those,
Yep.
And then it's a matter of where we pick up some parking. I think we need to get some parking up here for staff and visitors a little bit closer to the main entrance. I agree. Hearing about how you use that green space in the front, that we should take those 15 spaces out and get them on the side here. So yeah. So where the parking is shown, as it was previously along the road, or whether it's moved, it's all the same. It's to build whatever the number was, 155 spaces, say, it's going to cost the same wherever you put it.
So, oh, sorry, Brian. Okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thanks. So I have to leave in less than 10 minutes for a school committee meeting. I also wanted to mention, I don't know if there's any way to avoid having an access road too. I don't know if that would alleviate some of the concern about the students too, that if the access road stopped and on both ends, so that
Peter?
there wasn't a way that people were driving through, or does it have to go all the way around?
I think we could do it as just emergency access only. But I think the fire department's going to want to be able to circulate through around the whole building.
So if that's the case, can you do to the left of the building a parking area to the left of the building, not in the back, but just to the left? Just do a parking area there. That would be, say, 15, 20 spaces. And then I would go with with the modification of moving the parking on the top back a little bit,
Mhm.
and be done with it. With the access road just being a gravel or something that would be emergency use only. But that basically made it nice and simple. There's parking. If I'm explaining it to people, I have parking on the left to get to the building. I have, the town, and then the rest of it is parking for everything else.
But I agree. Like I said, we gotta have, if we're not gonna do them in the infield, we gotta have them over here, in my opinion.
Right, so if you can do just to the left of that, do like a little parking area.
Yeah, I think
Or-
you could shift this over and do double barrel, or you could do them up again, we can leave some of these decisions to the civil engineers.
Yep.
But I think if we give them guidance that we want 15 or 20 to 25 or 20 to 30 spaces over there, and take out the 15 spaces that we have in the infield, closest to the building, that's probably enough guidance, and then they can come up with the layout.
Yep.
Christina, is that new hand or was that from before?
That was from before, sorry. Let
Okay,
me take it down.
no problem. Sorry. All right. So
I'll withdraw my motion. I think John has enough information.
yeah, I mean, we don't have
Unless
to.
he has any other questions, we really don't need to vote on anything until we get
Yeah. So
a
just
plan.
to summarize, I think where we're going, John, is, and I will email you this sketch.
Thank you.
But I think what we do is we slide this bay back.
Yep.
To sort of where I'm showing it. That gives us room, by the way, to slide the building maybe 20 feet. Okay.
Yep.
and then we slide this over and somehow we get 20 to 30 spaces over on this left-hand side. And we take out the 15 spaces on the infield.
Yep.
And we keep these 10 spaces down here. I think that's what we're agreeing with. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Actually, Greg, if you're gonna add 25 spaces to the left, why bother to have either one of those spaces around the island? You just explained that's gonna be costly.
Yeah, so we could just take those right out then.
Yeah.
I would
Because
agree.
to me, that's a traffic issue too. Somebody trying to back up into that road.
Yep,
it's
that's
like-
fine. And that's low hanging fruit in the future. If the town decides in the future they want to build some parking, they can pick up a
Yes.
couple quick spaces there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's fine. So, so I think it's everything that I just said, except that we'll remove both of those parking spaces. Does that make sense to everybody?
Works for me.
Okay. All right. Is that enough, John?
Yes, it is. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll email that to you, John. after
Thank
the
you. I
meeting.
appreciate it. I
Uh,
appreciate your efforts, Greg. Thank you.
Well, I enjoy it, and like I said, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
It certainly is.
Yeah, by the way, Greg, thank you. We could have argued about that for another hour and a half if you didn't draw the picture. Yeah.
Well, I figured we're just gonna be pointing, and at least
Yes. Yeah.
everybody could have disagreed with that layout, and at least it would have given us a starting point to disagree.
Yes. Yeah, that was
Uh,
perfect.
All right, so that's fine. So I think, John, I guess I'll give it back to you if there's anything else, but I want to be sensitive of your time, and if there's anything else that you have for us.
No, I think we're in good shape. I'm gonna take another look at the plan. Just like I said, I think there's a couple things in there I want to shift around to get some square footages a little closer in storage areas and things like that. But back in the daycare, extended care area, I won't worry about that. Even though we're a little bit higher.
So John, just one quick thing. The double doors that you have between the school, the purple area and the yellow area.
Mhm.
If you shift those to the other side of the lobby, the other side of right where the toilets would be.
Greg, can you let me share again? So I can
You
pull
should
that-
be able to share again, yeah.
Okay.
You should be able to.
And I hate to do this, but this is going to be, to me, makes life a lot easier.
Hang on a second. Let me get to the first floor.
Yeah. So those two double doors right there,
Yep.
move them back the 18 feet to right where the toilet is, the wall where the toilet is.
Yep. Back
And
there.
that way now you can, I'm blocking the school side from the general purpose side. And still being able to, so you'd have access, so people, it just would be a little bit better for the access, I think.
Access for whom? I'm missing the point.
So it's taking the school side and you're still blocking the school side off completely. If it doesn't need to, if it's not during the day, if it's during the night, right now, if I walk in that entrance, I can walk in and walk to the school side, but not necessarily the multi-purpose side, the yellow side.
Well, okay. So you might, okay, I guess I missed that.
I might be going to a meeting room. I might be going to that room and by the, something like that, because, we just did the parking over there. So I'm going to park over there. I'm going to walk in this door and I'm going to want to go to the left. And that way I'm blocked from going to the right, to the school side.
Well, you're
Oh, so
saying put
you
the-
want to shift these doors up this way?
That's correct. Exactly.
Oh, okay. So right here, and that way I can have that way this entrance. Okay, I got you saying now.
Yeah,
move
but
it
I
up
think
there.
then you'd need both doors.
Oh, yeah, because that way people are coming in for the school during the day. They can.
Yeah, you'd want to have a door there to lock. You want to have a lockable door
Well, why would you have a door locked during the day?
so that you separate the town uses from the school uses.
Yeah, because people coming in to use the school would then have access to this. Yeah, that's why I put this here, so people coming in during the day to use the school are blocked from going into the meeting space or the town side, if the doors
Okay,
are
but
up here.
so I looked at it as the other entrance, the north entrance, or whatever you want to call it, the upper entrance, would have been the entrance for most folks going to the school area.
But we could add a second pair of doors here so that,
Yeah.
at night, you know, if there's a night function, this could get closed off and then you could get into the building. Because see, that's why I tucked this door here so that people coming in at night could get right into the multi-purpose if you had like some
Right. But
men's league going on. But right, they might want to come in and come this
go
way
to the
as well.
selectmen's meeting. You know, they're gonna go to the selectmen's
Yeah.
meeting in the other room. So,
Yeah.
because that's where the main parking is.
Yeah, so we could add a second pair of doors here.
Okay, that's it for me. Other than that, boom, I liked everything. That was the only thing I thought of when we started to talk about things.
All right. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to
Just,
mention to
just
John?
one quick comment and question for John. Just so you know, if you're not aware, we have tentatively scheduled meetings every Wednesday this month.
Yeah, I
And
was
we're
gonna mention this.
hoping to have an informational meeting for the public the first or second week of November. I guess the question is, how soon in the next week or two are we gonna have enough new information to hash around like we have tonight to help expedite this process so that we're definitely done by the end of October?
Oh, done by the end of October. Oh, I didn't know we were going to be done by the end of October. I don't.
That's what the contract was 60 days.
Okay, but okay, I guess it depends when you started counting the 60 days.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Because
I'm just throwing that out to you because we're up against a deadline for a special town meeting. And if we don't get the data that we need, you know, previous to this special town meeting, then this all may very well get pushed off till May.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, because I thought if we approve the plans tonight, I would then give it to the engineers and give them a couple weeks to do their basis of design so that they could start figuring out the systems for the building, a rough idea of structural grid, so that, because we need all that information before we can go to the estimator.
Yep.
So I thought that would be 2 weeks for them to put that together, which would take us to the 18th. And then we would need 2 weeks after that for the estimator.
Okay, so that's definitely up against the end of the month.
Yeah. When do you need to have the information for the special town meeting?
Yesterday.
Yeah, I would say the latest is the 27th, at the very latest.
Oh, boy. That doesn't give the estimator much time. He's gonna need more time than that.
Well, why did you say the 27th, Mr. Platt?
Just giving enough time for us to put everything together and have that informational meeting before town meeting.
Okay.
You know, because obviously the finance committee and others are going to want to have some data to digest. So, you know, I'm trying to be cognizant of Mr. Alonso's thoughts last night.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
there's members of the finance committee also that expected the comparable numbers for October 14th, and that's not going to happen. So there's another bump in the road that's going to be in front of us.
Well,
well, I mean, we're not putting anything in the article for the all the comparables. There's nothing for the finance committee to make a decision on any of that about. I mean, I understand that there's a want there, but I mean, the articles that we're putting before the town are to hear a report. There's no cost implications there. And then to build the old building, which they already have all that information. So there's no article going for, building this thing. It's just the funding, 200 and whatever $1,000 for construction documents funding, which is completely unrelated to the actual building. I would expect the finance committee to consider whether 250, whatever that dollar amount's going to be for construction documents, if the board moves forward with Article L, that's really the only scope of the finance committee, not the larger project that's not sitting in front of them, right?
well,
I
listen,
somewhat disagree, because you're going to be looking for a vote from the finance committee, or they're required to vote support or non-support for the funding article. And they're not going to vote anything until they know what the other dollar amount is for the comparative analysis that we promise them. So I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, there's more red flags flying up every day. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons why we're up against it like this. And we're getting further and further down the road and not looking like we're going to have enough information out there long enough for this to fly. But we're in a position where the articles are on the warrant. So they will go to town meeting floor at this point. And if it's deemed that we haven't got enough information out there prior to town meeting, I think the select board's going to move to pass over.
Yeah, so listen, guys, we can have this discussion and it's appropriate for our committee, but
Yeah.
suffice it to say, John, you now understand the implications. I think we've successfully made John squirm in his seat. So let's not put him on the spot anymore. Let's let him go and with the understanding that anything you can do to condense the schedule, John, we'd certainly appreciate it. Not to say that you haven't done great work so far. I know it's a condensed schedule, and actually I've been pretty impressed with the production so far. Anything you can do with you and your team to kind of keep the pedal to the metal there, and you understand our constraints. We're just trying to move it as fast as we possibly can, and there's lots of factors, and it's somewhat political and somewhat practical on our end, and we'll have to sort through that. But
Yeah, I understand, but I also, I know the way, the estimator likes to send things out and get some pricing done. And if he doesn't have a couple weeks, if that gets cut to a week, then, the estimate isn't as good.
understood.
So that's the issue. Unfortunately, wish we could have started a little sooner, but I guess, obviously there's things there that we couldn't start sooner. So, yeah, I don't know what I don't know. I'll come back and ask, but I'm not sure. I thought doing it, having the engineers in a couple weeks and estimators in a couple weeks is getting them to move pretty quickly. So, if we got to tighten that up even more, I'm not sure if the end result is going to be really good or not, but
John, if you're talking 2 weeks and 2 weeks, I mean, that puts us at November the 3rd.
Yeah.
And so that would have information in hand to us before that point. Right?
well, it have information, the estimate would be ready for November 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think we can talk about this more, but I think if we were in a position that we didn't have that, maybe what would be helpful is any preliminary information you can give us, but I don't think that getting the information 2 weeks out from town meeting is a showstopper. I mean, sometimes things are outside of our control.
Yeah, and
I agree,
to my point,
I mimic everything everybody else has said. This process, as you dove into it, has been fantastic. I think you've come up with things that, or this layout and everything that fell together so perfectly in such a short period of time. It's just things take time to do, and I understand that. I just wanted to verbalize the constraints that we're up against, but we'll mitigate those. Those aren't your problem.
yeah, but yeah,
Yeah, but I don't want you to have to kick things off to the spring just because, but I also don't want to give you crap either, to put it nicely.
No, we understand.
I mean, because we could take this square footage and say, okay, $300 a square foot times 58,000, and there you go, there's your number.
And that's exactly what we're trying to avoid, right? We're trying to get a good, thoughtful number here. Yeah.
Right.
So now, understood. I think enough
Okay.
said. I think we understand your constraints, and I think you're at least beginning to understand ours.
Yep.
And so we'll work together on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else for John before he leaves? Okay. All right, thanks, John.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Greg.
it.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
all right. So, so I know that's a packed thing. I would submit to the board that let's see where John comes in the next week, if he can get us a little better handle on that, schedule wise, and see where we land there. We don't necessarily, we don't have to make that, we don't have to, unless anybody has any more to say on that. We need the information as soon as we can get it. I agree with Michael Ray, I think personally, but I also understand that there's voices on both sides of this discussion in town. And so it's a sort of a larger, I think we'd all agree that the sooner we get this information, the better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there is a point where it's too late and we're just going to have to, and it's probably going to be a discussion that, well, the select board, I think last night made it clear that they're probably going to be the ones to make that final decision, because they can vote at town meeting to pass over the article, I think.
So, Mr. Chair, I look at that discussion we just had with him, made him understand the sense of urgency,
Yes.
and that was it. When we get the numbers, we get the numbers. We'll make it work. We'll make everything happen. But if we're meeting and getting to know each other every week, we'll figure this out, I'm sure.
Yep. I mean, we're certainly doing everything we can. I mean, we're meeting weekly to get this thing done. So.
Yeah. If I can also add, I mean, I understand some of these are constraints that, finance committee wants to have all numbers in a month in advance. So that way they have enough time to vet those numbers and make an appropriate recommendation. I mean, as a resident in town, I've been to enough town meetings where recommendations are made on the floor that, I think that sometimes there are circumstances in which you just don't have all the information until later in the game. And, and I know that there's a policy there. I understand it, but I would expect some flexibility. And on the select board's portion, I mean, we post meetings and I'm not going to go negative there. On the select board side, I think that there's often, many times there's information that's not fully gathered until the 11th hour. And it's just, there are things outside of our control. And I would expect that in government that we'd be reasonable and we have the same discussion every year about budgets, when we don't get that final number till, a week before. Sometimes it just is what it is. And on Article L, luckily we kind of have a rough idea what that total cost is. But ultimately, so long as, in my opinion, so long as we have all the information at town meeting for residents to make an informed decision, then I think we've done what we need to do.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that won't be the last of that discussion, but I do appreciate that insight.
Yeah.
Okay. Next agenda topic is review and approve minutes. We did get minutes today, but I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't had a chance to review them. So let's, we're meeting once a week, and Megan has indicated that she's working away on some other ones that she should have to us shortly. So let's push that down the road a bit and approve those next week once we've had a chance to review them a little bit. That sound good?
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
Public outreach. So did you guys talk? So I think you guys discussed this after I left last or 2 weeks ago. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
And you said you targeted a public forum of some kind the beginning of November.
That's correct.
That would be our goal.
That's correct.
Okay. So I see no reason to modify that at this point. I think we need to obviously have all the information in order to present there. So I think it's probably a little bit too premature to schedule that, but when do we think we need to schedule that? Like how far in advance to be reasonable for the public? And what mediums are we proposing to use to get that word out?
So I would look at it, Mr. Chair, I would look at it to be at least a week before town meeting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, and that we talked to the town manager. We would be able to use the town's Facebook site and other medium to get the word out.
And maybe, okay. The
You know,
ledger,
the idea would be a ledger article, town website, and things of that sort to get the word out.
okay. Okay, anybody else?
I think based on what we just discussed about the timelines, I think it's going to end up being the second week of November. I think
Sounds like it.
probably our next meeting, we better pick a date.
Yeah.
And
Well-
then we can start advertising it.
Yeah, okay, so let me try and let's see if we can get something from John, a little bit more firm from him in the next week, so that we can make an informed decision on that.
I think it's too early to start advertising or talking to the public about it. I mean, I think giving them a week's notice is more than sufficient. Anything more than that, they might forget, or if we have to change, it'll look poorly upon. I feel like if we give the week, it's a week after we're supposed to be getting the information, a week before town meeting. So I think that would be enough time. I don't think we need to start saying anything just yet.
Christina, the only problem is that if you're going to advertise it, you have to give the advertising entities the information a week or two in advance of that. So, that's where the urgency is. If you want it in the ledger, you've got to be, I don't know, a week or 10 days ahead of when you want the public to be able to see it, not the date of the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, but to
So-
Christina's
so mi-
point, once you advertise in the ledger, you have to be prepared for people to contact you and say, can I see the information? And if we don't have the information, when we advertise it, that's going to put us in an awkward position. So,
I- So, Mr. Chair, can I make it just one suggestion then
Yeah.
on this? The week of, I'm sorry, town meeting is November
14th.
14th. So, November 11th.
so,
No, well, I'm just saying, November 11th. Mr. Passios, is there a finance committee meeting?
it's that the November 11th is a national holiday, so we can't. do
Oh,
that.
that's right. Sorry. November 10th, there's no finance committee. Okay, so November 10th would be, that's the second Wednesday. So that means there might be a ZBA meeting, or actually, is that what are we today?
That's the second Wednesday of the month.
Right, so that would be a ZBA meeting if there was one, but that's, I'm just trying to pick out a date here that might work.
No,
Just
We
to
don't, we
think-
don't have to decide on the date tonight. Let's see if we can get a better schedule from John. And then let's map it out at our next meeting. Doing this next meeting gives us plenty of time, I think. Because next
But
meeting
even,
still the 13th, and then we can decide when we want to do it. We don't necessarily have to hit the advertise button yet, but we can at least put it on our calendar and map out when we're going to advertise if we get information. I just think that's probably a better approach in my opinion, but go ahead, Christina.
I was gonna say, wouldn't it be better to give them the 2 weeks? So I think the 20th, if I'm doing the math correctly, because that way we would know, has it left the hands of the engineers yet to the estimator? Because if at that point it's still with the engineers, then we know the meeting's a no-go and we're probably not gonna make the estimator in time for town meeting. So maybe we wait to there and see where it's at in the process.
Yeah, that's kind of I think you're saying I'm hearing you say the same thing as me. Let's get more information from John's team.
Yeah,
and-
but
and then discuss it then.
yeah, because I wouldn't necessarily think we really have an update next week, and I don't want to cause worry or concern if nothing's changed by then. I'd rather give him the 2 weeks that he said and see where we're at.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're certainly not in a position to ink something today, because, so I think we push that down the road. And certainly Facebook posts and stuff, those are pretty easy. Those we don't obviously need much lead time for those. So it's really
Just remember that only reaches about 20% of the citizens of this town.
Facebook.
Yep.
Wow. I would have thought higher.
You'd be amazed. You would think it'd be higher, but it's really not. I mean, word of
still
mouth
high.
adds to that, but
Yeah.
It's still higher than the number that show up for town meeting though.
yeah, that's true.
Or
Can we-
show up to vote, I should say,
Yeah.
We put like ask them to use the Ritter building to put a memo up on the side. I know I'm sure probably one side's gonna be for town meeting, but something like that, or even,
Yeah, we could
Get a-
we could put notices everywhere. All the town buildings and wherever any other public space we can think of.
Make up a sign, I'll stand in the center of town and wave it. Haven't done that in a year or so.
So I have a question about us. This is somewhat in this topic. I'm gonna have to give a committee report next week.
Good luck.
So how much information do you want me to share at that meeting?
I would just say, I didn't attend the meeting, but I'd almost say just be very upfront with them and let them know what we're dealing with from time-wise, because I feel like if we explain everything to them, then maybe they'll be more sympathetic to the case.
Yeah.
No.
Have you watched, Christina, have you watched last night's meeting yet?
No, unfortunately, I started a new job this week, so I've been working
Yeah,
7 to 9.
I'm just saying, if you get a chance, listen to that, and then your comments that you just made will be, you'll have a different take on it, I believe.
Yeah, so I guess my question really is, do I want to share any visuals? I assume so the question is, should I share any visuals?
So the plan that we approved tonight was conditional approve on him switching a few things around. So I think I would probably wait until we got the final plan,
Okay,
which I would expect to have. We might have it by next week, Michael Ray, and then in which case we can, in which case you can share it, but, or maybe we should wait until the committee sees it and then we share it. That's probably the best course of action.
all right, so, okay, then what I'll do is I'll give a verbal update, and then once we have some visuals, then I'll be able to go back to the select board with that, because ultimately the select board is going to need as much information in advance as possible in order to get keep L on the warrant. Well, we have until the 18th to rework L, so we'll know on the 18th if L is going to be the funding article for moving forward on any kind of construction documents. We'll know by the 18th if that's actually coming before the town. But I'll also, any information after that would be helpful, so that way I can also know if the select board is intending to recommend to pass over the article.
Okay, well, yeah, so let's see what we can, so how many meetings do you have before then?
The select board, let's see, we have 2 more meetings this month, the 12th and the 19th, and then in November, we have the 2nd and the 9th, and then the next week is special town meeting. So we have 4.
So, but you only have one more meeting before the 18th.
Yes, yep, we have
Yeah,
2. We have 2. We have the, I mean, we really have till the 19th. Let me take that back. We have until the 19th, I believe, at night to decide if we're going to print what.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, so hopefully we have something you can share visually for the 19th, and but I'd think what I would hope is we could get that from John. I think that's a pretty quick change, in my opinion. The stuff we asked for tonight, probably not gonna have the parking layout, but we'll have the building layout. We can prove it next week, we can review it and just make sure it's good next week. Post it to our website space, and then you can feel free to share whatever you want.
Okay.
But that's my thought.
All right, thank you.
Hopefully John can get it to us in that time frame. That's the only issue, but we'll see what we can do.
All right,
Yeah, and then, just I have the utmost confidence in your committee reporting abilities, sir. So
It's real simple. We're moving
These meetings are all-
forward steadily but slowly.
these meetings are all posted on YouTube, so just anybody can go back in the record and see what's been said. So just get the spade, call a spade as far as I'm concerned. It's a tight schedule. We know it is. So then there's a disagreement in town amongst certain people with how much time people actually need, and that's an ongoing discussion. But we're doing it as fast as we possibly can. I get it that everybody wishes it could have been faster, but we can't go backwards. So that's what we're doing. So, all right. Is there any correspondence to and or from the committee? I know that from the committee would mean that we'd give correspondence to somebody. I don't think we have any of that, but
No.
I don't have anything. Other than I did just want to say that I do appreciate people going last night to the select board meeting. Sorry that I couldn't make it. I would have liked to have been there, but I appreciate that. And I have not had a chance to review that video, but I will. So I did talk to Dave Passios briefly afterwards last night, but got the executive summary, but I'll definitely watch it for myself. So future meeting schedule, we have every Wednesday scheduled from now through the end of October. Do we want to schedule one in I guess we'll just wait till next week to schedule November, because that's going to play into to when, if and when we schedule a public forum. So let's wait on November. So just for everybody's benefit that might be watching this, there is a TCP Building Design Committee meeting scheduled for every Wednesday of October, starting at 5:30, and they will all be Zoom. There will be Zoom links for all of them. So any members of the public that are interested in attending those, we welcome that. Okay, we are nearing the end. Is there any public comment from the public? I do not see any members of the public other than our minutes clerk. So is there any final public comment from the committee? All right. I guess that is all. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, it's 7:25 for the record, and I will take a roll call vote. Michael Ray Jeffries,
Aye.
Dave Blatt,
Aye.
Dave Passios,
aye.
Christina,
Aye.
and an aye from myself. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate all the hard work.
No problem. Good night, John boy, as they say. Okay.
All right, have a good one, everybody.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye.